start, so I might kick off if that's okay, and like to start by saying good afternoon to everybody and welcome to our April Women's Philanthropy Circle event. My name's Amy Carr and I'm the Director of Fundraising and Marketing in Focus Island. And for those of you who may be new to the circle, Focus Island's Women's Philanthropy Circle is a group of like-minded women with one common goal, and that's supporting innovative and effective solutions to combat youth homelessness. So we, using the resources and leadership and advocacy that this group of inspiring women has created, we're working together to transform our society and ensure that no young person ever has to experience homelessness. And since our last meeting in March, I'm delighted to let you know that Focus Island has officially launched our new strategy for 2021 to 2025. And this new strategy, I identified 4 main groups of people we'll be working with over the coming years. So they're families and young people and single adults who have complex support needs. And then the last group is families again, but those who are homeless due to economic circumstances like shortage of accommodation and the increase in rents. And these groups are some of the most susceptible to experiencing homelessness. Our last strategy created 2 key areas of focus for the organisation to work on. They're what we call sustained exits, which is where we help people who are homeless to find safe and secure homes and then build the wraparound supports to keep them in their homes and make sure that they don't re-enter homelessness. And then secondly, we focused on preventing homelessness. So that was really around identifying routes into homelessness and then putting preventions in place to make sure that young people, adults, families never had to actually experience homelessness and the trauma that that can create and can ultimately stay with them throughout their lives. So we wanted to prevent it from ever happening to them in the first place. Under our new strategy, we're committed to moving further along these paths to help change the lives of these groups. But homelessness can't be ended just by working at the individual level, important as that is. People become homeless because of wider challenges in our society, things such as the weakness in social safety nets, poverty, inadequate mental health system, lack of addiction services, insecure tenancies, and most significantly, our failure to build a sufficient supply of affordable homes, something that really underpins the new strategy and that we're committed to doing over the next few years is to increase our own housing portfolio. So putting forward lasting solutions to these problems is part of the work that we call challenging homelessness. And over the period of this strategy, we'll continue to draw evidence-based learnings and insight and share them with our partners to help change the practices and policies that sustain homelessness. To build and sustain this consensus for purposeful change, we're really going to require the engagement and support of the public, and we'll continue to depend on the support and advocacy of the members of this circle to help support us in our commitment to provide the public with evidence-based, accessible explanations for the causes and solutions to homelessness. I've condensed about a 32-page strategy into a few minutes there, but if anybody does have any questions on it or they'd like to know more about it, please do reach out to me. I'm happy to kind of bring you through it in more detail and explain how we're really going to be working over the next few years. But if we come back to this morning, today I'm delighted to introduce you to 2 women who are both driven to create a lasting change in our society. Firstly, I'm going to be introducing you to our guest speaker today, which is Sonia Deasy, who's the CEO and co-founder of Pestle and Mortar. And after we hear from Sonia, I'm going to introduce you to Cara Gibbons, who's a project manager for Focus Island. There'll be time at the end that we've built in to ask questions from both our speakers. And if you want to pop your questions into the chat as they're occurring to you and we're going along, that's great. And I'll make sure that we have time to get some discussion going at the end. So our guest speaker, Sonia, as I mentioned, is co-founder and CEO of a very successful skincare company, Pestle and Mortar. driven by the belief that skincare should not be complicated. Thank you very much, Sonia, because I think that's something that every busy woman is appreciative of. Sonia's created a line of highly effective skincare products. Pestle and Mortar is rooted in Sonia's own Indian heritage in natural healing, and by combining high-performance active ingredients with natural extracts, Sonia has created a range of products that are pure and safe. Pestle and Mortar has captured the attention of consumers around the globe and has received endorsements from Vogue and Vanity Fair, leading Pestle and Mortar being stocked in 21 countries. It's great that Sonia is joining us today because it's Earth Day, where we put a focus on promoting clean living and a healthy, sustainable habitat for people and wildlife. And as both Focus Island and Pestle and Mortar are speaking today, I thought it was important to highlight both organisations' efforts in an area that is becoming critical to all businesses and indeed everyone in society. So both companies have recently pledged to create positive environmental sustainability. Focus Island recently launched our Green Focus, an internal committee dedicated to environmental sustainability. But I think it's important to say that Pestle and Mortar have been cruelty-free and vegan since the start, with over 3,000 potentially harmful ingredients formally banned from their skincare products. And sustainability is really a core element of Pestle and Mortar's mission. Some of the company's sustainable goals have included 100% recyclable out of packaging for all their products by 2022, and introducing their first refillable skincare choices by the end of 2021, and swapping plastic bottles to glass bottles wherever possible. On that note, I'd like to introduce Sonia, co-founder and CEO of Pestle and Mortar. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Sonia.
Thanks, Amy. Such a good introduction. I have a presentation, so I'm going to share the slides, and I will begin in a moment.
Okay, give us a second.
Sorry, one sec. Yeah. Okay. So. Few technical difficulties, I always have. So, it's not working.
Give us a second.
Okay, so after that, good afternoon, everybody. So as Amy introduced me, my name is Sonia Deasy, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pestle and Mortar, an Irish skincare company. Let me start by saying that I'm honoured to be here today in support of Focus Ireland and the phenomenal work that they do. More entrepreneurs are male, and there's a reason why. It's not because females are less innovative, less imaginative, or less capable. In fact, according to research, men are likely to start a business, are more likely to start a business or become an entrepreneur because of overconfidence. Confidence is arguably the largest psychological predictor of someone's decision to pursue a career in entrepreneurship. My journey with Pestle and Mortar has led me here to speak to you. It's given me the opportunity to show up in the hope that something about my story gives other women the confidence to own their stories and build a business that they are proud of. My personal story is hugely relevant to the Pestle and Mortar journey. I'm now in my 40s and I'm a mum to 5 kids. So I'm busy. When I started Pestle and Mortar, they were ranging in the age from 10 down to 4. Luckily, I live on the Curragh of Kildare, so I put them out to graze there for a few years. So they're practically reared now. My husband works closely with me in Pestle and Mortar. I previously worked alongside Porrick, my husband, in our successful portrait photography studio. From 2010 to 2015, we traveled extensively to speak at photography conferences. When working with models in the studio, I noticed that a lot of skincare problems came to light under the lens, mainly dryness and flakiness. These girls, women and mums, they were busy people, but they didn't seem to have a simple skincare routine figured out that would suit both their lifestyle and their pocket. My skin also suffered the same fate, and I grew frustrated that there didn't seem to be an effective solution on the market that would allow me to build a simple skincare routine that worked for my lifestyle and my pocket. The earliest breakthrough moment for me was when I realized that there were many people who were feeling exactly the same way that I was, confused with regard to which skincare products to choose and frustrated because expensive products weren't working, feeling bad because their skin was looking dull and lifeless, feeling that they couldn't leave the house with no makeup. I thought, imagine if there was a brand of skincare that believed in nurturing natural beauty. A brand that was so simple, so easy to understand, and so clearly beneficial for all skin types that you didn't even need to think before you decided to buy its products. My driving motivation in one sentence was, skincare shouldn't be complicated. So once that idea was in my head, I drew naturally on my own experience in business, and I was also hugely inspired by my heritage and my upbringing. My ethnicity is Indian, although I was born in Ireland and my nationality is Irish. I come from 6 generations of Indian medicine men. My uncle still mixes powdered medicines in his village in India today. This heritage inspired my basic goals for my products. That is, combining science and nature to create highly effective skincare formulations. My heritage gave me a structure within which to formulate my products. My goal was clear, but I'll be honest, everyone really did think that I was mad. I was intending to launch a skincare brand with a single product, and it was a product with which the market was already flooded. I mean, there were hyaluronic serums everywhere, but the thing was, I didn't like any of them. I was absolutely determined to deliver to the market a hyaluronic serum that provided instant results and didn't feel sticky or tacky on the skin. I spent 18 months getting the formulation right and researching the market. I believed that I could make a product that stood out against competitors, and I believed that the story behind my brand would connect with people. At the heart of Pestle and Mortar is the drive to solve the problem of ineffective skincare for people. When you solve a problem for people, you empower them to take action. The next step for me was getting the product to market. Here I drew on my experience in business. I grew up as a shopkeeper's daughter in Newbridge, one of 6 kids. In my early 20s, I had to step in to run the store for 6 months. I did absolutely everything from opening, payroll, till tallies, customer service, stock replenishment, supplier payments, and closing the store. This gave me the groundwork for life as an entrepreneur, because business is business, regardless of the era. You buy it and then you sell it for more than you bought it for. Growing up, I was inspired by the women closest to me. Although my mum was a housewife and spent all of her time rearing the 6 of us, she taught me the value of family and how important it is to be dependable and consistent, that there is no magic recipe for success. One characteristic of female founders is that they are more proactive than males in the area of building a team. This is our natural advantage. Create a family around you who believes what you believe. Don't ask people to work for you, ask them to join you. My passion runs deeper than just wanting to fix bad skin. I believe that everyone is beautiful. I want to change the culture around beauty, the flawless models, the flawless models that we see on social media and in magazines, photoshopped and airbrushed. These are not beauty. At Pestle and Mortar, we want to shift this culture. We're not just making skincare products that work, we're empowering everyone to own their own natural beauty by caring for it. So getting the product to market, obviously nowadays, there's huge emphasis on branding and aspirational marketing, particularly in the beauty industry. My husband is both exceptionally creative. He also has good taste and he's systems obsessed. We were determined to start out with a big brand mentality. Porrick devised internal management and stock control systems, and we pinned down a design direction. We were always thinking big, and we were always thinking long term. We were focused on building a community of people who believed in what we were presenting them with. We designed and packaged our hyaluronic serum accordingly, and we started the slow process of market infiltration via social media and approaching potential stockists. A question I'm asked a lot is, how on earth do you manage being a mum to 5 kids, CEO of a skincare brand, and working with your husband? I'm afraid I don't have the magic answer for you. All I can tell you is that anything is possible as long as you believe that the world will miss out if you don't realize your dream. A major breakthrough for Pestle and Mortar is what I refer to as my New York story. Basically, in May 2015, our New York-based PR company asked me if I would do a Skype interview with Courtney Rubin. Courtney is a freelance journalist who regularly gets published in the New York Times. She wanted to write specifically about hyaluronic acid as an ingredient in skincare formulations. She was particularly interested in the science behind hyaluronic acid. The fact that it is a carbohydrate which occurs naturally in the body and is responsible for creating fullness of appearance and hydration. It depletes with age, leading to dryness and wrinkling. Without getting too technical, the molecule is too large to be absorbed into the skin, and Courtney was looking at new advances in science which focused on creating a smaller sized molecule in a piece called The Second Coming of Hyaluronic Acid. So at 10 p.m. on a Saturday evening in May 2015, I found myself on a Skype interview with Courtney. I prepared extensively. I was very aware that this interview was potentially a New York Times piece and that it could lead to a sizable slice of the New York market, which was not to be sneered at. Porrick and I practiced questions. I spoke to myself in front of the mirror. I tried to look as good as one can on a webcam, and the kids were practically sedated before going to bed. The last thing I needed was a cry from Mama mid-New York Times interview. The interview went really well, I thought, so I sat back and I waited to see what would come of it. That was in May 2015. Nothing, absolutely nothing was published in the subsequent 6 months. I was so disappointed and disillusioned. I also felt like giving up. Porrick, who is sometimes irritatingly positive, urged me to chalk the whole thing down to a worthwhile experience. But inside I was frustrated and my confidence was a little knocked. I thought, oh dear, she obviously didn't think I was good enough. Also, I wanted the US to happen for us, and I'd seen this as the starting point. I decided to forget about the interview and stopped ruminating on it. Life went on as normal until lunchtime on December the 30th. Courtney's article was published in the New York Times magazine. That day alone, we sold thousands of serums across the US, and sales from that one article continued for the next 30 days. We sold out worldwide. We had thousands of visitors to the website. My systems-driven husband had thankfully, and not by accident, built a USA fully functioning e-commerce website, and he set us up expertly with a fulfillment center in the US, so all of those orders were seamlessly shipped. Thinking big from the start had paid off for us. You have to be willing to take a risk. We now had a very strong e-commerce business in the US, which allowed us to make a play for QVC, America's largest shopping channel. Which brings me to this QVC story, a major breakthrough for Pestle and Mortar in America. To date, I have appeared on QVC more than 20 times. The process from start to finish is grueling. It is not easy, firstly, to actually get a sales slot. You then have to make sure your production is geared up to deal with potential sales, which also involves risk. And then there is the prospect of appearing on live television in the birthplace of television as a complete newcomer to the process and for my first time ever. Before my first appearance, I had numerous Skype training calls with QVC professionals. I had to put together numerous presentations, and myself and Porrick flew over to Pennsylvania to meet the team and be shown around QVC headquarters. It was May 2016 when we travelled over for the real thing. Apart from having to sort out a wardrobe and physically prepare for my appearance, a process for which my husband had no major sympathies, I was going to have to speak with the presenter live on air for 7 minutes in what was effectively the most important sales pitch to date in my Pestle and Mortar career. My older brother and Porrick were with me and were of some support, although I could sense that they were almost as nervous as I was. That was live TV, and the pressure was very real. The goal was to sell, and the presenter had a live sales feed, sales information mic'd through to her during the appearance. Before I went on, as I was getting mic'd up for the 7-minute slot, I looked at the QVC representative and I said, I don't think I can do this. She looked at me and she practically pushed me onto the stage. I swallowed and I got on with it. During the appearance, I could tell from the host that the sales were going well, but I had no idea how well. They added an unscheduled minute onto my appearance, during which they asked me how the name Pestle and Mortar came about. Thankfully, I knew the answer. At the end of that process, I walked off the set and I burst into tears. Porrick and my brother were waiting for me with hugs, and all the other brands who were waiting for their turn on air were cheering and clapping and high-fiving in true American style. They had been in the green room and they knew the sales figures. In 7 minutes plus one, I had sold out. I've appeared a number of times since then, and it does get easier. For me, the point of this story is that you can learn to do anything, and you can do anything. If someone had told me 5 years ago that I would be appearing live on American television in front of millions of viewers, I would have looked up from changing a nappy and said, what? Pestle and Mortar is a Kildare-grown business, which is now known worldwide. In 2019, we won the National Enterprise Award in recognition of our vision and success in business. I was also chosen as one of the 24 finalists in the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards in May of the same year. Our products are stocked in over 27 countries across 3 continents. Currently, there are 11 products in the range, with numerous more in the pipeline for this year alone. In a market that is flooded with choice, our unique selling point allows us to attract and retain market share. Pestle and Mortar products combine natural extracts with key scientific actives to create simple skincare solutions that work. The business was named one night as I sat at the kitchen table with my husband and my kids. The business of naming my business was as important to me as naming one of my children. That particular night, we were all chatting about what should I name this business. And during that discussion, my eye was drawn to the pestle and mortar that lives on my kitchen countertop. I shouted, Pestle and Mortar. I wanted the name of my business to reflect my own motivations, namely simplicity, natural solutions, and a less is more philosophy. Natural healing principles were instilled in myself and my siblings from a young age. Whenever there was an ailment in my family, my father remedied it naturally. As I mentioned previously, my grandfather was the medicine man in his village in India, and this tradition of natural healing has continued in my family for over 6 generations. My uncle practices today in the same spot in the same village as my grandfather did. A pestle and mortar is an implement used since ancient times to grind medicines and food. It is a simple yet highly effective device that has withstood the test of time. The perfect name for my business and a reflection of the fact that I want to build a lasting beauty brand. 100-year-old pestle and mortar that my forefathers used to grind medicine sits pride of place in our offices in Naas to remind me of this every day. I have had an amazing journey so far with Pestle and Mortar, full of experiences, travel and excitement. I believe that the biggest challenge for young female entrepreneurs is lack of confidence as compared with their male counterparts. But women are powerful in business. We are great communicators and we have a nurturing aspect to our nature, which is a valuable differentiator. Look to other female entrepreneurs for support and inspiration, women who started from nothing. women like J.K. Rowling, Arianna Huffington, and Bumble CEO Whitney Wolfe Herd, who took her company public with a dating app designed to put women in the driver's seat. Never doubt yourself, and don't be afraid to be. Don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try. Thank you.
Sonia, thank you. That's so inspirational, and I'm sure there'll be loads of questions for you coming through on the chat. I mean, there was so much covered in that as well. I have questions for you myself, and I love when you said, you know, don't ask people to work for you, ask people to join you. And I think that's so key through all businesses, that people want to come on the journey with you and they want to be part of what you're doing. Before we get to the questions, I'm going to move on and introduce you to my colleague, Cara Gibbons. Cara Gibbons is the project leader in Georges Hill and our Preparation for Education, Training and Employment programme. She's been in Focus Island for 20 years, I think, at this stage, and is the team leader in Georges Hill Children's Services. So over the course of Cara's career in Focus Island, she's worked across our services. She's been in Elwood Green, in Stanhope Green, Grange Lodge, and in our PEAT programme. And since 2018, she's been project leader for Georges Hill, with a responsibility for the long-term accommodation and short-term accommodation for 18 to 26-year-olds. And again, for PEAT, and I can't remember if I said that's our Preparation for Education, Training and Employment programme. We call it PEAT internally, and people are often confused about whether we're talking about a person or a programme. So Cara's been working across the organisation to create a psychologically informed environment in Focus Island as well, where we all understand and have an awareness of both each other and our customers. So Cara, I'm going to hand over to you now to talk about your work and a little bit about what you do. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, sorry.
Hi, thanks, Amy. Thanks, Sonia, for that. That was lovely to hear all those words. Yeah, so I'm the project leader in Georges Hill. That's where I'm based. So Georges Hill is a housing accommodation for people who are in long-term housing and for younger adults aged 18 to 26 in the short-term housing. And then I also have the Preparation for Education, Training and Employment programme. And as Amy said, yes, towards the end of this year, it will be almost 20 years that I've been working in Focus Ireland. And I think it's because every single day is different. And I was having a discussion with my colleague very recently about this, and it's not that the work changes, but maybe our human and emotional responses change regularly throughout the day or throughout the year. So before I came to Georges Hill, I had been working in an under 18 residential service for children who can't be looked after in their own homes. And I came from that service, from the emergency family accommodation in a service in Finglas called Elwood Green. And in that service, we provided accommodation and a children's support service for the families who had come from homeless situations. And then before that, I had been in long-term housing, and when I started in Focus Ireland, as Amy was saying, I started with the children's service, so a preschool service and an after-school group. And I think every time I've changed jobs, it's because it's like, oh, maybe, so now I'm working with children, maybe working with the parents would be really helpful so that we can like interrupt this cycle or stop the trauma earlier. And then we work with parents, and it's like, oh, maybe it's when they're in care that we should maybe try and help there. So I think what, like lots of the things that Sonia was saying, I was like, oh, that's really good. I want to try and use that the whole way across the customers we call are people who use our services in Focus Ireland customers, because we're a service-based organisation. But we're trying to give, I suppose, or show people confidence in people. I think that's what gets eroded maybe for people who have been homeless, who've been let down by accident, by disability services or mental health services or education services, or let down because maybe of their parents' needs, or because maybe they weren't allowed enough. So what we try to do is, well, my simple, short and simple rule is always be kind and always be straight. And I try and do that with all of my colleagues and every single service user and customer that we meet day to day. So what we're doing is telling people that what we do matters. So we say what we do what we say we're going to do, and we're really just hoping people will put their hands out when they need help, because when they leave Focus Ireland services, as they do, we don't want people to depend on us all the time. We want people to leave our services, and particularly our younger people who are 18 to 26, we want them to try, ask for help. It might work. If it doesn't work, if it didn't work, it doesn't mean that we didn't care. It just means we didn't know what to do. We had to Google something, maybe staff are out sick. There's so many reasons that we can't do what we want to do. They're not personal to the service user or to the customer, but I think we're just trying to show them that if they ask for help, there's help there. And it's a practice that they have to develop. So for example, in the young person's accommodation, so we have a community of 12 young adults in there, so men and women, and they have many different experiences, I suppose, by the time they've come to us. They could come at 18 or 24 or 26. But what they have experienced is a massive amount of uncertainty. So in the way that I always think, if we're waiting at an airport and the plane doesn't arrive and nobody tells us when it's arriving, our stress levels ramp up and we get upset and annoyed, or a wide variety of other emotions. And that's very similar for our younger people. They don't know where they're going to be living in 2 years. So the ask of them to invest in a relationship with us is massive, especially when their relationship might have failed in the past. So we had one young woman who came to us at 23 or 4, and she had been living on the streets. She'd been living on the streets as a child with her parents as well. And sometimes what happens, depending on people's behaviour, is it becomes a little bit difficult, I suppose, to keep them safe and to keep other people safe in a project. So she came to us and we said, right, we'll hang on to you for as long as we can until we get somewhere for you to be housed in the long term. And what happens, so our service usually is for between 6 and 18 months. That's kind of the optimum time for people to learn a skill and move on. And we kept her over that time. And she tested us and she pushed us and she tried and tried. I think for us to repeat patterns that every single human had repeated in her life up to this. And what we did was we developed an enormous amount of tolerance, elastic tolerance, I suppose, which is what we had to have for her. So we taught her and showed her that your behaviour doesn't matter to us. We're going to keep you here until we can find you somewhere safe and solid to move on to. So the tiny changes were that if she got annoyed with us, she came back maybe an hour later or a day later or a few minutes later and apologised. And so even those tiny, what appear like tiny changes in behaviour, are massive in relation to how she manage when she leaves us. So every, I think Sonia, you mentioned as well, like lifelong learning, like, so everything we say to people is an intervention. So every interaction that we have should be an intervention. It should be learning that they can take with them to live into their adult lives. So she moved only, I would say, maybe 8 weeks ago into a longer term. So she has a tenancy now. The team she went to has mental health specialists, addiction specialists, and medical specialists. So it's a much, it's a very different service than what we could offer, but it suits her down to the ground, and it's what she needs and what sustains her, I suppose, into the future. So that's our one person, but we have many positive stories, and I suppose in Focus Ireland and maybe everywhere, we take small wins everywhere because we can see like we get joy out of positive interactions on a daily basis. So I suppose with COVID as well, we've had to change how we can provide a service to our younger people and the people in the long-term side of the accommodation as well. So we don't have visitors. We're not allowed visitors. We don't bring visitors into the project. So a lot of people can become very, very isolated. So the way we speak to our people now is much more briefer, because we need to keep everybody short, but it's much more impactful. And again, it's not, I think what Sonia was saying about the project, like it shouldn't be complicated. We have a message to get by, which is a message to pass over, which is you are valuable, you have value, and we do that in very short, succinct interactions with our service users. And we're always just trying to plant, oh, World Health Day, plant a seed. We're always just trying to like plant a seed or an idea, or like just plant hope, that hope is possible, not hope is possible, change is possible, but they can be anything. Sonia, I wish I had your pages. They can be anything. There's no reason why they can't be, as long as the rest of the society and us as workers like scaffold them for as long as they need it. So that's kind of it. I think it's lovely to meet you, Sonia. It's great. Many moons ago, I think I was at one of these when we could meet in person, and it's just lovely to feel that there's a bunch of women out there who care about what we do and are supportive of what we do. So it's great. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Cara. That's brilliant. I have been getting questions through for both of you here. So if you don't mind, we might just kind of go into the questions. Now, sometimes I'm told to change my view here to a gallery view, so I'll do. You might want to do that if you're watching as well. So Sonia, oh, actually, this is a comment for you. I love your products, and I'm one of your older customers. That's from Julie. So thanks very much, Julie. A question for you, Sonia. How has sustainability played a role in the formation of Pestle and Mortar? Has it been kind of key to what you do?
Yeah, it's huge. So when we constantly look at our products, that even the ones that our first product that we launched was our pure hyaluronic serum, and it didn't come in recycled paper. It was laminated, so you couldn't recycle it. So we've removed all that, and it's 100% recyclable now. We're constantly looking at everything we do from a sustainability point of view. From the ingredients we use, the packaging we use, where our products are coming from, where they are made. So 80% are made in Ireland, 20% in Germany.
That's brilliant. I think everybody can see this becoming more and, well, so important to every business and every kind of even non-profit. It's something that we've started to look at and take see what we can do internally in Focus Island as well. That's great. I got another question for you, Sonia, here. Thank you, Sonia. That was very inspirational. Would you recommend having a business mentor and also a professional coach?
I would recommend having a business mentor.
Yeah.
I think for me, because I grew up in a self-employed family. My parents were self-employed. All my siblings are self-employed. My his parents were self-employed. He was self-employed. So from a business point of view, yes, I would definitely recommend having a business mentor. Definitely.
Yeah, it's funny because I suppose a lot of people might not come from the same self-employed background, and that might seem quite daunting to a lot of people.
Owning and running your own business can be a really, really lonely road. If you,
yeah,
it's fine for me. I run the business with my husband, so we can talk to each other. But I couldn't imagine doing it on my own, where I couldn't speak to somebody, because it can be quite lonely.
Yeah. I think the next question is for Cara. So what's your biggest, what's the biggest issue that young people in Focus Island are facing at this time?
I think not particularly COVID time, is it, or just in? Yeah, I think it hasn't. Certainly in COVID, because of all of our community supports have closed, so counselling services. Well, no, some of them have reopened, but I think maybe a year ago, social workers had stopped visiting, community psychiatric nurses had stopped visiting, and counselling or drug addiction services had closed because, well, we didn't have PPE for a fair while at the start. And then we were, I suppose, trying to figure out where can we continue to deliver service. So I think that's a problem, and it remains a problem as well from days gone by when there were cuts as well. A lot of our community services didn't open up that can support us and help supplement, I suppose, the housing work that we do. And I think as well, our young people's isolation and marginalisation, really, regardless of COVID, they're marginalised from the family, from society, from the peer group even oftentimes. And I think for young people to trust people and have confidence in people and to engage in other services is always tricky for people who've been let down for most of their lives. So, yeah.
That actually leads on to the next question as well, Cara. What challenges lie ahead, do you think, for people as restrictions come to an end over the next few months? Kind of what challenges do you think they'll be facing?
Yeah, so I think it's rebuilding and reestablishing those relationships as trusting relationships. So, and I mean even relationships with the clinic or with the social worker or with the local counselling service, not necessarily with the individuals. So it's getting back into the practice of meeting people, getting back into the practice of kind of being the centre of attention again in another service. And I think that's what so many of our interactions are about, promoting that change and that healthy relationship building with other people.
Great. Sonia, what needs to happen to ensure that more female entrepreneurs sorry, I put my teeth back in and I'll start that one again. What needs to happen to ensure that more female entrepreneurs starting their own businesses are supported?
There's some amazing supports out there through the local enterprise board and Enterprise Ireland for female-led businesses. We got huge supports. I think that people like myself speaking and educating and showing that, you know, we can run successful global companies. But the local enterprise boards are really good for supporting female-led businesses.
Great. The next question is actually for me. So it's how can Women's Philanthropy Circle members support Focus Island's new strategy? So as I mentioned, we're launching a new strategy at the moment, and it's really building on our last strategy, which kind of showed how we were going to work. This is kind of who we're going to work with. I suppose one of the things that I'd say is, if you're interested in the strategy, it is quite detailed, and we'd love to talk to you a little bit more about it and kind of find the areas that you might be interested in. But some of the work that we're going to do is really going to be at policy level. That's where we'll really drive, I think, sustainable change. As we've said, Focus Island is part of the picture, but we're not the full part, and so we really need kind of organisations, the government, all coming together to make a difference. So there will be things I think that we'll be asking our supporters to get involved with, to support us with, to use their voice and to help us make change at the highest levels. And we'd love to talk to you about that in a little bit more detail and how that might fit in with you, your businesses, and what you're doing. So we'll be in touch with people in the circle to let them know what that might look like over the coming weeks, if that's okay. Gosh, they're coming through thick and fast now. Sorry, let me see where we've got to on the questions. Does Cara have a highlight from the past 20 years of working in the homeless sector? Wow.
Oh my.
Is there something that stands out for you?
I think it's an event that happens periodically, and it's when people move into their own home. And I think that's for families and single people and individuals, and even for our people in residential. It's a bit emotional, but it's always great to see people leave Focus Ireland and have their own homes where they can behave in the community the way any of us do. If we need a hand, we'll ask somebody, or there's a doctor or a GP or anybody to help us. So those massive milestones are highlights all the time. So that's great. Always great events.
Yeah. So, I suppose that's what makes the job really kind of, you feel like you've had a great day at work when you see things like that happening as well. Sonia, very similar for you. What is your proudest achievement in business? If you had to pick just one.
It's probably QVC America and selling out in 7 minutes, where less than 1% of them sell out, new brands sell out, and I think we're the only Irish brand ever to be on QVC main channel in America.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to finish on this last question. It's for both of you. So a nice place to finish. What is the favourite part of your role? So if I might start with Sonia.
New people.
Yeah.
New people. I'm a people's person.
Yeah. I think that's lovely. And Cara?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like the crack that you have with other humans, regardless of how you end up meeting each other, you know, the interactions you can have. It's just great. It's always good being around people.
That's brilliant. I think we're coming to the end, and I'd like to finish off by saying a massive thank you to our guest speakers. So thank you to Sonia and thank you to Cara, and for answering the questions, and I think giving us a perfect launch to go back to work feeling inspired for the rest of the week and to go into the weekend. Really thank you for being here today. Thank you to everybody that's come along to the meeting as well, the members and people who are thinking about becoming members of the Circle. If you're interested in supporting young people, I would encourage you to join the other members, and to maybe piggyback on Sonia and what she said today. You know, when people support Focus Ireland, we really like you to come on that journey with us, to be part of the change that we're making, and to really feel and I suppose own that part of the work that we do. We couldn't do it without you, and we would love your support if it's something that you would be interested in helping us with. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks very much again to Sonia and Cara, and to everybody for joining us. I hope you have a really lovely weekend. Thank you.